So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for the Blub World Web Talks. This is the 234th episode of the Blub World Web Talks. In the last 233 episodes, we have talked to, interacted with more than 4,000 school leaders on this very platform where they've shared their ideas, opinions, innovations, and what all new are they doing in the education space. तो नमस्कार, आप सभी का स्वागत है ब्लब वर्ल्ड वेब टॉक्स के 234वें एपिसोड में। पिछले 233 एपिसोड में हमने करीबन 4,000 से ज्यादा शिक्षाविदों से बातचीत की और उनसे ये जानने की कोशिश की कि वो शिक्षा को कैसे बदल रहे हैं और शिक्षा उन्हें कैसे बदल रही है। नमस्कार, आई एम दक्ष, आई एम द फाउंडर ऑफ द ब्लब वर्ल्ड मैगजीन that works on a very simple idea of finding teenagers across the world who are doing something amazing and sharing their stories with many more teenagers. Since the last 3 years, we have been working on the world's only and the first elected parliament of teenagers called the World Teen Parliament. And this year, we're coming up with the World Teen Awards to again financially support the most inspiring teenagers across the globe. And just continuing that same effort for empowering teenagers, today as well, we come together for the BlubWorld Web Talks, where we'll be again discussing something that's super relevant, super critical for the teens of today, because the kind of world that we are currently living in, intelligence, your understanding of things, the formula of success, knowing what's important, what's non-important, is changing every single day, because some of the pillars that we thought will guarantee success, like if you're a superb mathematician, if you're a superb coding guy, if you're a superb linguistics guy, you'll be able to make, a successful life, you'll be able to have economic comfort. But with AI coming in, with some things becoming so menial so quickly, how do we think we'll be able to keep economies and incomes at pace? Before we start the session, just some ground rules for everyone. The Blub World Web Talks is a timed platform. So once your speaking time is over, you might get muted. If you get muted, please don't get offended. It's just to keep the activity crisp and entertaining for everyone. Secondly, it's a bilingual platform, so you can use English or Hindi, any of these two languages. Please don't use a third one because I might not get it. And most importantly, during this complete conversation, I would request all the speakers to please keep your videos on, because if you put them off, you might not be able to put them on during the conversation for security purposes. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Let's start the 234th episode of the Blub World Web Talks with this amazing array of guests that we have today on should standardized testing be abolished in schools? Now, what do we mean by standardized testing? When we check you for math, when we check you for memory, when we check you for reading, does this standardized testing really add to your economics when you become somebody who, when you become an adult, when you go into professional life? Does this standardized testing really help? If it does, to what extent? If it does not, to what extent? So let's try to know that from these amazing experts that we have today, from the college space to the school space. Let's start with somebody who can give the college perspective to it. A very warm welcome to Ms. Riddhi Bhogi, who's the head of marketing and brand communications for Whistling Woods International from Mumbai, Maharashtra. Riddhi ji, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me here. Good evening to everyone. I hope you all are doing well. So, of course, I head marketing at Whistling Woods, and it's a college. I'm not sure if everyone knows. We are an institute of film communication and creative arts in Mumbai, Goregaon Film City. And we cater to the entire creative side of education. So, my perspective to this is that when we look at outcome for children in terms of education, I think just the standardized testing is not the only accurate way to test, because we have a lot more in terms of options available outside than the textbook education that the children do, more than the maths, the commerce that they have now. I think a lot more performance based testing can also help. I think it's also unfair to get their problem solving ability or any indigenous knowledge that they have, to measure with a standardized testing. So very performance based also assessment will, help us gauge the students' capability, understanding, or a problem solving capability that they have to be in this field when they grow up or choose any profession. So it's more for a 360 understanding. along with right now what they are doing for their future things. So I think it's just more than just having a standardized. Of course, it has its own pros and cons, but I feel a very performance-based test also should add value to it.
Thank you so much, Riddhi. Let me try to summarize what you said. I think a good start when you talked about trying to assess the indigenous knowledge or the innate knowledge that a student might have, because this is becoming critical by every single day. Because whatever we have standardized till now, the curriculums, the syllabus, and everything, whatever is standardized or is there on a piece of paper with the binary world system being there, AI already knows it. And when we have AI assistants and when the curriculum is so easily imitable, how do we think we'll be measuring children or teenagers to make them better in their adulthood? You also talked about the problem solving capability. Now, this problem solving becomes even more critical now because this is where human analysis comes and has a play. Because AI might not be able to give you such apt solutions every time. And thirdly, what you talked about was performance-based testing or performance testing, which typically a lot of schools are now doing by project-based works and different things that they're experimenting. Let's try to know from other speakers what they have to add to the topic. Thank you so much, Riddhi. Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Mr. Bhanu Pant, the principal of Delhi World Public School from Ajmer, Rajasthan, India. Bhanuji, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Daksh, and it's an honor basically to be sitting on this platform on a very interesting topic, which is extremely debatable. Well, I'm basically associated with school teaching and learning process since almost 33 years now. And I know, how there is a lot of changes which are coming up. Educations are talking about, how assessment should be done of learning. But when it comes to sending the child to the school, what is the basic objective? What is the basic purpose, which is there, which of course parents should understand because this would also be reaching the parents. The school is not talking about child being tested on learning because it is quite debatable because what a child is supposed to learn and how the child is supposed to be learning, and why a child is supposed to be learning this, because learning outcomes of what we are keeping in the curriculum is very important to understand. But then it is not learning, it is also teaching. So when a teacher is teaching and learning is supposed to be assessed, then assessment basically has to be understood in a much, much better manner. Because education is just not academic prowess or maybe a child able to express what has been taught in a limited way. Education is a very vast spectrum, It is in fact a complete all-round development of a personality. And as educators have understood and realized, intelligences and learning abilities are always inert. Aurobindo and Krishnamurti and Vivekananda, they have all said this. Education is the manifestation of perfection which is already within us. So every child has an individual difference, and the standardized testing, which was earlier happening when we had, rubrics by which the report card was designed or it is still being designed, where we have unit tests and we have half-yearly examination, and we have also a blueprint and a pattern in which the curriculum basically is given to the child, and the child is also preparing it, and the teacher is also being tested that how is he teaching so that the child actualize and maximize the learning, which basically is our own creation. So I feel that somewhere the creativity, somewhere the fun, the uh, the learning becoming a happy experience, that is where we are missing on, and that is why perhaps today we are having this debate. Because learning should be always a very, very pleasurable experience, both for the learner and the teacher. Not only they should be highly motivated to learn, but they should be highly inspired to learn. And if that is basically happening, then of course the project-based learning and the formative way of assessment, of course, have to play a larger and bigger role, where comprehensively all the intelligences have to be incorporated when there has to be integrated approach. so that the child basically, without having any anxiety, without having any stress, should be coming up and expressing, and the learning should be reflected. So everybody talks about it, but of course, as I said, it is debatable. And why it is debatable is because we have to have extremely good mentors. It is not inspired learning which should be happening, but it should be also inspired teaching. So if we have such a wonderful platform where both sides are actually not only ready, but fully equipped by delivering what is expected, then of course, today we will have the motion, when we might be thinking about abolishing standardized testing in the schools.
Thank you so much, Bhanuji. Let me try to summarize what you said. I think you brought in a very important element of the conversation where you talked about that why, how, and why should what, how, and why a student should be learning. What's the purpose of this, and how are we meeting that objective? You talked about learning being a very happy experience. I think at this point, people also have to understand that when we talk of the specifically of the Indian education ecosystem, the onus of learning is on the student. The onus of teaching is not on the teacher. If a student is not able to perform, it's non-performance of the student and not non-performance of the teacher. So are we really judging things in the right way, or should there be, different kinds of testing for different kind of stakeholders? So thank you so much, Bhanuji, for bringing this to everyone's notice. And most importantly, the final takeaway that should move forward in the conversation is that learning or education is basically a manifestation of what you already have. So are we really having mechanisms to test and understand the innate knowledge that a student might bring to the school or to the classroom? How are we really taking it from where they have started from? Thank you so much, sir. Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Dr. Gauri Prabha Prasad, the principal of Gurukul High School from Bengaluru, Karnataka. Gauri ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Daksh. So, thank you for bringing me just after Bhanu sir, because I would like to elaborate on the same way. Why actually parents are sending you to the school? The purpose of education is nothing but survival. So at the end of the day, why are we educating children is to tomorrow's earning. So at the end, is it that education solely only going to be your knowledge, or is it the skill which is required for your survival? So are we catering the right thing to the children? Today, a simple thing, a 90% child, if he cannot handle a simple failure in his job, will he be able to survive in that job? So getting a child with the best performance also, there is no guarantee of his survival. So are we catering right things in the school? And especially in the school education system has become so monotonous of, just before this change of 2-3 years post-corona, what we are seeing, the new NEP being implemented. If you see the previous 10-15 years, we also introduced some continuous evaluation process, all those things. But ultimately, by end of 8th standard, you are telling the child you are supposed to score 90%. So the child is completely confused. Is it that life skill which is important, or is it my marks? Because 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th, 5 years of the child, you're just basically telling the child to rote learning. So obviously, I think now the system has to change, where we have to, because job markets are also so challenging and choice for the child is so much. It's like, no, the previous generations where we used to think medical and engineering were the only sole professions which you have bifurcations in the same field now. So there are a lot of choices. The child must do right choice. What are my strengths? What are my weakness? Am I interested to do that thing? So anything when we have to earn and be successful is the interest of the child which has to be carried. So if myself doesn't know what am I wanting in my life, what will the child do further? So I basically believe that the child, instead of assessing him on a 3-hour basis, must be continuously evaluated by a teacher throughout his journey, tell his strengths and where he can improvise, rather than having a rote type of learning assessments. And a teacher, as sir said, is it assessment of a teacher when his performance is credited, like if he is underperformer, is it the teacher who is responsible? No, I wouldn't tell that teacher is solely responsible, but still she is responsible if he is under performer, where she can guide the child If it is not performing, what are the other strategies, or where is he supposed to do it after that? Because not all children are mathematicians, not all children are creative, not all children. So we have variety of people in the classroom. So it's the teacher who recognizes, and at the present parenting ways, we have only 2 hours sitting with your mother and father, but 8 hours with the teacher. So it's more than a mother and father. I believe responsibility of teacher increases where she recognizes and values of what the child has to carry on to the societies. The sole responsibility of teacher who has to get out. I mean, come out of her boundary of, it's not about teaching social studies or mathematics in the classroom. It is about why social studies and why mathematics to the child at present. So there were times we studied Pythagoras theorem without knowing why are we studying Pythagoras theorem. So is the child, are we going to teach the same way to the children, or are we going to tell why am I learning to Pythagoras? Before, I think adding value to what the teacher teaching is in a, it is more important now for a teacher, because even challenges are there for teachers today in the classroom, where you can't tell that, the child in the classroom is just 9 years old. You must know that the child in the classroom knows much more than what you know, because access to knowledge today is vast. What we know is nothing when compared to a 9-10-year-old child. So you must be able to convince and cater to the right direction to the child is what is the biggest challenge today. And I think assessment, and at the end, assessment is necessary, but at what level and how is important to be assessed at present. So this is what I feel.
Thank you so much, Gauri ma'am. I think a very important perspective that you gave to it was that you have to now convince the child and yourself as a teacher on the value proposition that the subject is bringing in. That is it going to add some economic value to your life? Is it going to add some emotional value to your life? How would this subject or the content that's being discussed in a classroom, what is the value that it is giving to you? It has to be monetized in some or the other way. Because when we talk of education for survival, we are only talking of monetizable skills. But would the only monetization, getting money, would give you a satisfactory life? That's where, socio-emotional intelligence comes in, and everything, has a thing to play and a part to play. So I think it's very important when the teacher who's teaching the subject does not only teach the subject, but also questions the subject on the basis of value being added. Thank you so much, ma'am. A very important perspective which has to come in, because when we do testing, we only test the subject, not its relevance, its practicality, or its connection to the real world. This is becoming even more critical now. Thank you so much, ma'am. Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Dr. Satyaveer Singh, the principal of MDVM School, Parle Biscuit Private Limited from Neemrana, Rajasthan. Satyaveer ji, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Very good evening, and good evening to all the speakers. I am absolutely in line with the previous speaker, those who have spoken, especially with the lady who spoke at the beginning. She is not from a school background, she is from the corporate. The motto of our school, if I talk, is that let the learning be a joy and teaching a pleasure. So with this quote, I will say that abolishing test as a whole will not be a good idea. But at the same time, we can reach to a moderate kind of thing where we need to test a child. Say, for example, how good is the oratory skill of the child? Because in today's corporate world, if you talk about a leader, if he or she is having good oratory skills, how good he is at the team building. So our motive as a leader in the school should be that we should rather test a child that is the child is a good team player or not. And apart from that, if we are talking that on what basis the child should be tested. See, one point is how much marks he is getting. That is the desire of the parents. I also, as a parents, will naturally, being a principal, also will feel that what percentage my child has got in class 10th or 12th. That is the basic motive of the education at the beginning. But the moment you keep going towards the corporate world, or rather you have discussed the AI world of the today, This marks and all is nowhere it is counted. The thing which is counted, that is how good you are at project, how good you are at public speaking, how good you are at making the project for yourself and making the project for your team. And the most important thing is what are the basic values you have learned during the school. So to be a good citizen, the test format of today's education is not that required. What we need to modify it for the corporate world coming ahead. So as per my opinion, it should be there, but it should be done in a moderate way. Totally, I am not in favor of abolishing it, as well as I want that the focus should be given on the skills which is useful for a child in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think a very nice quote that your school already has, that learning a joy and teaching as a pleasure. When we try to guarantee both of these, we have to take care of both the stakeholders, which normally is not being taken care of across schools. And we have to figure out more ways when we talk of testing. You say that, yes, there's a need for a moderate ecosystem of judging, that how do you really evaluate a student? One of the way could be continuous evaluation on different parameters, but we'll have to make this a mainstream conversation now. Because till now, this is a conversation that we can have off track. And yes, this is something, an alternative to what is going on currently. But I think now there's a need for the mainstream to change, and it should become a center topic for most of the education conversations now. Thank you so much, sir. Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Dr. Swati Kapoor, the principal of Takshashila Model Senior Secondary School from Faridabad, Haryana. Swati ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Okay, thank you, Daksh, first of all, and for the opportunity to be the part of this informative discussion. Good evening, dear panelists. Well, it's very clear because all the panelists, I was hearing them that they were talking about. It's very inevitable that it's pros and cons. While it helps maintain educational standards and identify areas needing improvement, it also puts immense pressure on student and may not accurately measure their true abilities. Perhaps a balanced approach that incorporates alternative assessment methods could better serve the need to the student and that promote a more holistic approach to education. So in my opinion, this is inevitable to go on the both sides. Let's talk about the positive one. Although going through the standardized school level can change according to our own parameters, but it helps ensure that all the students are held to the same academic standards, where standardized tests have helped identify their where areas where students need additional support, leading to targeted interventions and improved learning outcomes. So this provide valuable data that can guide instructions and curriculum development. My teachers use test results to identify strengths and weaknesses in their teaching methods, ultimately enhancing the quality of education provided to the students. Moreover, standardized testing promotes accountability in education by measuring students' achievement against establishment benchmarks. Schools are insensitized to maintain high standards of teaching and learning. This accountability fosters a culture of continuous improvement. So another benefit that it gives us, it's a role in facilitating college admissions and career opportunities. Many colleges and employers use this method and scores a measure of academic readiness and potential to leverage their strong test performances to gain admission to prestigious universities and colleges. So it also promotes equality and fairness in education, regardless of their background or socio-economic status. All students are evaluated using the same criteria. So this ensures that every student has an equal opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge and skills, contributing to the more just and inclusive education system. So additionally, this test can serve as a valuable diagnostic tool for identifying educational disparities and addressing inequalities. So now let's not forget the role of standard testing in fostering international competitiveness. In an increasing globalized world, students need to possess the knowledge and skills necessary to compete on a global scale. So standardized tests like the program for international student assessment like PISA, it's very common and very important, that help benchmark student performance against international standards, ensuring the students are prepared to succeed in the global marketplace. So in my opinion, this provides students with valuable opportunities for growth and for recognition. Achieving high scores on standardized tests can boost students' confidence and self-esteem, and motivating them to strive.
Thank you so much, Swati ma'am. The first 3 minutes were over, but I think some very important points you made. You are very pro with being standardized tests being there, and I think it's a very important addition to the discussion, because this is what guarantees that we are holding all the children to the same standards. We want them to perform in a certain way. We want them to achieve a certain level so that they're internationally competitive. They can get into the right universities. They can have the right courses. It does sets a kind of an accountability for everyone in the complete ecosystem. I think it's a very great argument that yes, we are putting meritocracy in place. We are putting equity in place so that people can be tested on a scale and the best ones can move ahead. But at the same time, what we are trying to do with this topic is to try to understand that where does that balance really lie? To what extent standardized testing for accountability, and to what extent there should be more additions to what are we trying to test? And I think one of the speaker very clearly, very nicely articulated it, that what is the value of whatever is being taught? Value proposition not only with the perspective of monetizability, value proposition with the perspective of quality of life, with your understanding of life, and most important, how does it impact your survival? But I think some very important points Swati ma'am added, that yes, this is what keeps the system running. Because if the system was not there, we cannot educate at a very big scale. So thank you so much, ma'am. Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Dr. Sabuj Ahmed, the principal and co-founder of the new school Dhaka, Banani Dhaka, Bangladesh. Sabuj sir, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Start my video, okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. This is the first time I'm joining this excellent group of academics. And I'm sorry, I was having some technical issues. The topic that has been discussed, unfortunately, I couldn't hear the first 2 or 3 speakers. But what I found out, most of my fellow principals and academics, they pointed out the plus and minus, the pros and cons of standardized testing. If we look back at the history of standardized testing, like why did we need it? As the moderator pointed out, we needed standardized tests to assess a huge amount of children. School-going people increased, and probably, if I correctly remember, the modern standardized testing, the Americans started. They started in American schools. First, it started an intelligence test, and then SATs and all those standardized testing for college admissions and all that. And then it has been widespread, like all the schools all over the world, we are doing it. So, of course, it has survived so long, and in different types of curricula and different types of institutions, irrespective of developed countries, developing countries, or special schools or public schools. This is mainly because all those plus, like this is a global village now. Our kids have to compete from another kid on just the other side of the planet. And if we don't have this standardized testing, we can't compare, like where we are, where they are, like achievement gaps. We need to understand. And to manage the huge number of students, like, for example, in Bangladesh, we have something like 18 crore people now. So the school-going population is huge. So we have to depend on our board exams. Like in our country, for secondary and higher secondary, we have now 7, 8 education boards. And those boards have to arrange those standardized tests and find out group A, B, C, like we mark with GPS, on a 5 scale, like GPA 5, GPA 4. Why we do that? Because we don't have a lot of top-notch colleges. They are few. So those colleges need those standardized assessment results to choose the best. And for example, Dhaka University, one of the oldest in our subcontinent, Dhaka University, the chances of a child getting in is 1:20, sometimes even higher. So 19 students will not get in there. So we will have a standardized test there. But the problem of a standardized test, what I feel mainly is every child is individual. Every single child is individual. Individual as a person, individual in his or family background, individual for his ethnicity or her ethnicity. So many ways a child is individual. And standardized tests by default ignores that. So the same test, if you throw in a classroom where a child is coming from a working class family, where they don't have, for example, electricity supply, or in extreme heat, any cooling system, and the next day's exam, another kid is coming from a rich family with all the facilities and with probably both parents with PhDs, and you are throwing the same test. Nothing can be more criminal than that. But what can you do? You are doing that. You are giving the same test next day, and one is getting the top grades, and another is probably failing. So what we need to do is we have to accommodate. We have to make at least up to school level. Probably in countries like India, Bangladesh, where boards deal with a lot of people, or where schools are not authorized like American school system to give those diplomas, because many of our schools will start selling diplomas. Unfortunately, I don't know much about Indian schools, but in our country this will happen. If you give this diploma power to the schools, they'll be writing diplomas for money. So you can't even do that. So what can you do? Now, at least what I believe is up to grade 12, we can keep standardized tests to the minimum up to grade 12 before they go to universities, because good universities are limited. So you will need a standardized test there. But in the school system, you can have this continuous assessment, all right? Keeping in mind the individual child, trying to help the child from very early age up to grade 12 to cover as much as possible the achievement gaps.
Thank you so much, Sabuj. Sir, the 3 minutes were over, but I think some very important points you added and a very important analogy that you gave. It's very important to be discussed at this point, that we are giving the same standardized test to people coming from very different backgrounds, because that background creates their support system. That background is what enables them to perform in that standardized test. And you very well mentioned, when we talk of the American education system, the schools have a lot of autonomy to give out those diplomas. They have something called an independent school district, or ISDs, when we specifically talk of the US. And those ISDs have the same autonomy as a typical university would have in the Indian subcontinent. Because these ISDs can give a diploma, change the curriculum, change the teachers, change everything that they want depending on the requirement of the district that they're coming from, which accommodates a lot of different talents and local innate knowledge and folk knowledge in the children that they have in a school. But you're very right when you say that if we allow such autonomy to schools in the Indian subcontinent, there could be some not so nice practices coming into play. But we will still have to figure out a place where we have standardized testing, and at the same time, that standardized testing becomes a little more accommodative for different backgrounds, for different capabilities, for different skills, and different passions that students bring to the table. Thank you so much, sir. Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Ms. Tejal Shivapuri, the principal of State M.R. Jaipuria School from Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. Tejal ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Good evening, panelists, and very good evening to all the young members who are there in the panel, who are listening to all their principals and all their leaders. So what's going to happen in our school in future? So I would just like to elaborate a little bit on what is already being done in the school thanks to the new education policy. So first of all, we have a very beautiful system of giving a lot of emphasis on the portfolio assessments of the children, the notebook assessments, and Subject enrichment activities have been given a lot of emphasis both from the CBSE side and also from the new education policy side. What we are doing at Jaipuria Group is that we have our own curriculum, and the value system which is embedded in our curriculum is we have given it an abbreviation called SPICE. So S stands for sustainability, P stands for possibility, I for integrity, C for consistency, and E for empathy. So this is the consistent theme that we are following through all the activities that we do with the children in our schools. So what we do is that the assessments that we are talking about are the summative assessments or the standardized tools. I would like to say that completely abolishing it would be taking away from the learning outcomes that every student needs to achieve at various stages in his or her life. At the end of the day, we don't want learners who have been given ample time to enjoy the learning process, yet when they stand at the threshold of their life where they go with a degree, but that degree does not give them the skill set or the economic viability in today's time or in future. So as we had set the tone in the starting, we do not need to pressurize the children, yet there are beautiful ways and strategies through project-based assessments to performance-based assessments where consistently we can give some learning outcomes to the children and allow them to flourish and learn as well. So summative assessments are something that can always be run by the teachers at the end of a particular academic session or a period. However, there can be a lot of learning that the child can do by observing the environment, by listening to a lot of videos, by speaking, by creating those opportunities, for example, holding elocution activities in the school, holding quiz in the school. So you can have a maths quiz, you can have a GK quiz, you can have an SST quiz, and the teacher can keep on testing certain portions of the syllabus which the child needs to complete through all these interventions throughout the academic year, so that the pressure of completing the entire syllabus in one examination is reduced, as well as that one summative examination, which is basically a pen and paper test, is also done with the children. So we had a system of formative assessment and summative assessment, which was tried and tested in CBSE schools for some time. That has now been taken away. So we now have periodic assessment tests and we now have summative assessment tests. And CBSE does give the leaders that space wherein they can allow the teachers to reduce their academic syllabus up to grade 8. So you need not give pressure to the children up to grade 8. However, the learning outcomes are very important, because at the end of the day, these children are going to question us that why did you not give us enough learning opportunities? Why did you not test us? So we cannot shy away from a role and from the understanding that education at the end of the day is a means to earn a living by most of the individuals. Now, when we say that our children are coming from different academic and economic backgrounds, we also have to understand that there.
Thank you so much, Tejal ma'am. The 3 minutes were over. I think some very important points you also bring in when you talk about the SPICE ecosystem that you're using within your schools by trying to identify different perspectives or different capabilities that a student might bring in: sustainability, possibilities, consistency, empathy. I think it's also very important what a lot of IB schools use, where they try to give a lot of voice to the teenagers so they get intervention and they're able to have their opinions put up. When we talk of this kind of changes that we really require, these come from the individuals who are experiencing technology for the first time. We haven't really had an opinionation from the people who are born with this technology. So let's try to have their opinions on what do they think. A very warm welcome to Ms. Prisha Saraf, who is a World Teen Parliament MP from grade 9 from Ryan International School, Sohna Road, Haryana. Prisha, over to you on what do you think the topic states and what's a teenager's perspective on it.
So myself, Prisha Saraf, I firmly believe that standardized testing should not be abolished in schools. People argue that standardized testing creates stress and limits creativity, but these concerns can be addressed through improved test design and administration. Tests can be structured to assess critical thinking and problem-solving things, rather than rote memorization, like stated by Tejal ma'am, that quizzes can be conducted Additionally, standardized testing prepares students for future challenges. In today's competitive world, students will encounter various assessments in higher education and professional settings. By practicing with standardized tests, we develop essential test taking skills, time management skills, and the ability to perform under pressure. In conclusion, while standardized testing may have its drawback, it remains an essential tool in our education system. Instead of abolishing standardized testing, let us work together to improve its implementation and make it a more effective and equitable tool for all students. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prisha, for really advocating for the academically inclined teenagers. That yes, it should be there. I think one very important point that you added was yes, we have to find a balance, and in finding that balance, I think there should be a space for teens as well. This new tests or these improved test regimes should not only be figured out by the educationists. I think there should be more voice given to different stakeholders. Okay, so I think all the speakers are done, but we could not listen to Tejas. No worries, we'll try to listen to you in the next session. Before this session comes to an end, a very important element that we must all consider is what kind of improvements are we really looking at when we talk of improving standardized testing? And do we really have an aspiration with this? Or is our aspiration really inclined to this? Because with all the academic testing being the base of higher education, with all the academic testing being the base of all the meritocracy in the world, how much space are we leaving for the people who might not fall in the right side of this kind of testing? And are we really making it a part of everyone's aspirations to be more inclusive to all the people around us? Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of the Blub World Web Talks. This was the 234th episode. I hope you liked it. If you liked and if you have some more thoughts to share, do comment on the YouTube video that comes out. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing evening ahead. Namaste.